Now, a subject which can come up is elements. So the classical elements of whether it's in the ones that were proposed by Aristotle. You've got the four classic elements of earth, fire, air and water. And obviously you have Chinese elements such as wood, fire, earth, metal, water. The elements and the elemental makeup in the occult world is one of those things that's hotly debated, and there's energy that's represented. So I've given you a kind of visual representation of how I tend to think of it, and how, because we teach a lot of Wiccan students, they have their kind of 5 elements, and generally speaking, what people will do when it comes to the cards is they find that each suit is relevant to one particular element, or that has a strong foundation within that suit. So obviously you have the classic suits in classic playing cards, and they've kind of been replaced by the wands or rods or sticks, the pentacles or coins, the swords, the cups, and then you have the major arcana. So in the 5 element system, what you would have is you have air represented by sticks or wands or rods. You have the earth element with the pentagram earth represented by the coins or pentacles. You have fire represented by swords in the house of swords. You have water represented by cups, the house of cups. And then what would classically be concerned with spirit at the top of the pentagram, you have the major arcana. Now spirit is kind of, to a certain extent, the gods, the deities, that sort of thing. Now the major arcana deals with those kind of archetypes, the archetypes of the gods. You know, this is one of those things that's a complicated and otherworldly part of the tarot deck. You have systems like in the in the earth part, you'll find the earth and the cards within the pentacles tends to refer to very earthly things. So you have, you know, topsy-turvy work, poverty, wealth, you know, these sorts of things that are relevant to the physical world. So a lot of these, when they come up, many people will ascribe them or say that they're to do with the physical world. In here you have the fire, strength and fury of fire. These are strong cards. The swords, you wage war with these cards. They're very harsh. And fire, of course, you can cook with fire, but as well as it will burn you. Cups, water. Water is very movable, overflowing, much like emotion. There is a lot of emotion. These are happy times. Contemplation, all of these things, they're quite emotional cards. So when they come up, they often are said to refer to emotion and the water element. Now the rods or the wands are quite intellectual cards. There's a lot of thinking going on, a lot of the intellect, contemplation, these sorts of things. Air is said to be the mental plane. Now, all of these things often are attributed to zodiac signs as well. So if you're taking this kind of Wiccan Western system, then you'd say that fire was Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. Earth would be Taurus, Virgo and Capricorn. Air would be Gemini, Libra and Aquarius. And water would be Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. So when it comes to this, how is this really going to affect our reading? Does it make any difference? Well, when you're talking in terms of just looking at the cards and in delving into the cards and the symbology behind them, the more symbology that is at your disposal, then technically I suppose you could say the more interpretation you could apply to a specific card. So although we do teach and we have taught, this is my personal deck, that if you do use a card and just look into the symbology of the cards, we know that you can get answers. But what about the deeper mysteries? So what about things that aren't really necessarily affecting the physical world? Most people, when they come to a psychic, they want to know, is my boyfriend cheating on me? Will I get the raise? Is something going to happen with this court case? They want to know things that impact the physical world. But of course, tarot over time has evolved, and many mystics, philosophers, occultists, magical practitioners, witches have added teachings to them, hidden meanings, symbology, and of course the tarot is not just a means to answer questions, it's actually a means of exploring the universe and exploring the concepts of how the universe is made. So in terms of how you might connect with these things, from the Western perspective, you're generally going to use the elements as a beginner. Most mystery schools and, occultists and witches and that sort of thing, they make big emphasis on the elements. There are entire systems of magic devoted to the elements. So when you research the representation of the elements and what other people say about the elements, you will find that they're often reflected in these cards in each house. The House of Pentacles or the House of Earth, that should reflect mysteries relevant to Earth. When you're talking about the gods and the higher planes and stuff like that, you will find those concepts in the major arcana. Now, does that mean that you can't just take a card and that is purely that only belongs to the air element, blah de blah de blah, so on and so forth? Well, now, obviously there's a lot of in-depth things that you can use. But in terms of obviously covering what the majority of people and what a lot of people out there will tell you in terms of the classical elements and classical attributions to cards and things like that, then they are often seen as significant, and reading into in more depth what each element stands for and what's at play. If something comes up in a reading that is earthy and has a lot of earth cards, then this could be a contributing factor. So you might think of it in terms of earthly pleasures, earthly needs, wants, earthly matters. If you're coming up with fire and you're coming up with strength and that sort of thing, hotheads, that sort of thing, then if you've got a lot, then that's a strong reading. That's quite a strong aggressive reading. If you've got water and a lot of water or cups cards are coming up, could that possibly mean that there's a lot of emotion involved with this spread and what you're delving into? When you've got wands, is this person an intellectual? Is it purely intellectual matters that are coming up? When you've got spirit, or whether you've got the major arcana, are these archetypes, are these other things that are getting involved, whether it be other entities, whether it be the kind of Carl Jung archetypes, the framework for the mind? We're delving deeper and deeper now into what you could possibly consider to be more occult knowledge and how that may come out in a reading. But I don't necessarily want to just focus on reading at this point, because of course by this point you should be able to answer questions. You've got a lot of techniques that you've used and it's a case of mastering them. So when we have a tarot deck and when we have the Rider Waite deck, which is the one that we're using, what is it that they have hidden within these cards, and why did they produce these cards in the first place? Well, the Rider Waite deck has come out of a secret society. It was created by A. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, and that secret society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, had a huge impact on Western magic and the practice of Western occultism. So many people will claim to have learnt the secrets or that were hidden within these cards. But if you take any card and open it up in different ways and really contemplate and see the information that's been put out there by other people that have used and tried to, work out the symbology. There are entire libraries of books dedicated to the subject of just this tarot deck, just the Rider Waite deck, and seeing what stuff is hidden in there. So in terms of delving into psychology and stuff like that, then you can use the archetypes perhaps of the major arcana. What does that tell you about yourself, the situation? What are you using? If you're taking something and you're taking, true justice, would you take that as a concept and you think of, instead of them as gods or deities, you take them as principles or concept? What is at play? What is justice? What is love? What rules it? What is true strength? Opening them up and really being more of a philosopher and thinking about what these things actually mean as a meditation tool is quite a popular thing, and one of the reasons why they did create the deck. It is a meditation tool. It's a tool to be used. Now, are you just going to use this as a form of divination in order to, tell the future, or you to use with clients? Are you going to use it as a gateway? Are you going to use it in order to create a magical system and teachings of yourself? What are you going to do? If you're taking something and you're giving a student a lesson, what is that lesson? Can you tie it to a card? When I teach and people use this deck, what I tend to do is pick out cards that represent an idea. So for this, if I talk about meditation, I will use this card to talk about meditation. I will say, when you meditate, use this position, contemplate, lie in bed, lie on your back, hold your hands like this to create a circuit, a complete circuit when you're doing your meditation. That sort of thing. There are a lot of secrets that have been hidden in these cards. Can you work them out for yourself though, or do you need someone else to tell you? That's the question. Ultimately, when it comes to any form of magical practice, copying someone else, using someone else's work, me teaching you and giving you the answers will only get you so far. Because what if I'm no longer prepared to give you the answers? Do you have the tools necessary in order to answer the questions yourself? Well, the way this course is designed with tarot is it's designed to teach you the techniques that you have to implement. You've got nothing from this course if you've just watched the videos. If you haven't watched the videos and you've learnt the techniques and you've started to implement them and practice them, then at this point, of course, you've started to use tarot as a tool to do many things. But don't stop there. Obviously, you want to progress and push yourself further. So what else can you do? Yes, that's a question. What else can you do? Ask yourself, what can I do with these cards? Now, we do talk about spell work and things like that. We've opened cards up and looked into the cards. We've made them move. Things like that. Well, you have certain ideas of what cards stand for. There are certain images that come to you when you look upon the cards. I wonder what the person that created the cards, Arthur Waite and Pamela Colman Smith, what did they see? Why did Pamela Colman Smith create these cards the way they did? Why did they use the symbology that they did? There's Pamela Colman Smith. If you buy the Rider Waite deck, there will be a Pamela Colman Smith card. If you're using this deck, think about the symbology used. At this point you've got other decks, look through the deck, compare the deck that you've got with other decks that you also have. Take each card out and compare them. Why are they using this symbology? Do you think they've got it wrong? Is there anything you'd like to change in the card? I mean, you've been using them now. The concepts are coming to you. Would you consider making your own deck? You know, it's one of those things that we're now going to be getting into the realms of this is actually more than just a set of cards in order to be used for divination. In actuality, this is perhaps a magical system for exploring the universe and maybe even creating change in that universe. So there you go. The whole point of this video really is to make you think and reevaluate this deck and what tarot actually is and its purpose. Again, we're in the mystery school, or the realms of a mystery school now, as opposed to just a course on tarot. So you need to decide what you want out of this and how far you want to progress. So think about that.